this residency has just been an invaluable experience, meeting other people, connecting with other people, and feeling really safe. Thinking about creative practice, I was absolutely astounded how comfortable I felt being creative around other people, probably for the first time in my life, and realising that I can be creative. I created on the first session a collage, a kind of left to right timeline collage, really, about growing up hidden from my sexuality, my gender, and my cultural heritage and ancestry. I was born in the late 70s and I was 24 when Section 28 was repealed, and so there were just no conversations growing up about being queer or about being gender non-conforming. I hope that this beautiful body of work, and that queer travellers or Traveller Plus people being seen and going into the archives visibly as LGBTQ plus or non-cis, will leave a legacy for others like us to feel proud of who they are and to feel emboldened to exist authentically.
That you find yourself in a room full of people like you. That's something I've never had before, and it's just an incredible experience just to be able to have that space and to be supported in talking about issues that really we couldn't really talk about in the same way of anyone else. And yeah, I'm happy with the work that I've done as a result of it as well. I've submitted a poem that I made as part of the session called Party Riot. It's sort of like an ode, sort of like modern, like queer love, like the fringes of society, and just having that desire for you and a partner to just go away and leave everything behind. Yeah, I feel like the work really sort of reflects a lot of how I felt, like being like a queer traveller. In the sometimes it feels like there's not really a place for you. That the society is not made for you. That you're just an unwanted part of it. But being in this space, in this residency, very much showed me there was a place for me. Yeah, we need exhibits that aren't just about us, but are by us. I'd never really seen like any sort of exhibit about traveller history or London history before in any museums in London, really. Or even outside of London, like I just haven't seen it. I mean, you can only do good representation if you do representation at all. We're actually there. We're on the map. Our history is recognised. Our stories are being told.
It feels a bit like being in a minority within a minority. Because it's like most people here are like gypsies and travellers, traditional gypsies and travellers, and I'm more of like a new age traveller, so it's been interesting in that sense. There's so much crossover in experience, but there's also like difference in experience. The thing that I want to display is basically a collage with old family photos on a spray diesel can, and I wanted one, and then it was great because I was just walking down the street and literally the universe answered my prayers, and there was just a diesel can on the street, and I was like, yeah. I knew that I didn't want to buy a new one. And I had a water butt, but the water butt was a bit big, and I was like, So like, and I really wanted a diesel can, so that happens. And then, because I really work in 3D, everything I do is 3D, so it's quite funny the process that I'm going to make it in 3D so like 3D real life made into 2D photos, cut out, put on a 3D thing, and then take more photos of it, like backwards and forwards between the different dimensions. So I'm quite into that idea. And I'm probably just going to put that in a zine that's like a collated kind of thing. I don't know, originally my zine was about the intersections of like solo mothering and being queer and being a traveller.
There's very many different ways to be gay, and there's very many different ways to be an artist. And I think coming here every week has been really cool. It's really like made me think about where my strengths lie in my artistic practices, and also like pretty stupid, like someone just going, oh, we're just gonna do like collages this session, and I'm like, I've never really done a collage, and then to do it and to do well at it, and you're like, oh, there's so much I have never given myself the opportunity to do, you know, and this has really provided that space, which is really cool. Which is why I kind of want to, the pieces that I'm going to put in the show will be some of the pieces I've created here, because I feel like that gives the best reflection of like, hey, look at like what I was able to create because I was given this space in such like a rare chance. Sometimes it's really hard to envision yourself in a space when you don't see yourself in a space. And hopefully this will be a very large step towards that. I imagine all the people that are going to attend this and come to this already sold out event and will see themselves there, and this work will be within the archives, like forever. So in 100 years' time, a little gay traveller kid might be looking it up and be like, oh my gosh, these people existed before you.
It's been a long time since I sat down and made art like we have done on the residency. I've really enjoyed every activity and found myself grieving the years that I've not been creating physical pieces of art like this. I feel like the residency has played a big role in improving my self-confidence. I never thought I'd be leading a creative workshop. I had no idea I'd be doing that when I started. I put in my application that I would like to create something to do with tarot to connect with my heritage, but I had no plans or ideas on how that might come about. It feels like I've come so far in such a short time, and it's amazing what the power of community and art can do. I really do believe that art is a great medicine. I think community art projects can be so healing and have the potential to transform lives.
Those who know me well will laugh when they hear that finally, after a decade plus of writing, editing and producing visual arts, that finally, after this residency, I actually don't feel hesitant to call myself an artist. They've only been trying to convince me for the entire time. But there is something to be said about being in a creative space with your artistic peers who are such ceaseless cheerleaders and so utterly invested in your growth and development. It has completely changed the way that I look at myself and my place in the communities I exist in. It has changed the risks that I'm willing to take with my work, and it has completely revolutionised my self-belief. This is the first time in my practice where I feel I've been able to combine both my writing and my visual artistry in ways I'd not felt I was able to before. I think the best example of it for me is the collage poem that I've submitted, made up of various extracts from queer and or traveller poetry and tied together with my own narratives and imagery that resonated in various ways. Key standouts with the imagery for me particularly are the portrait of myself gifted to me by my dear friend Joe Chatfield, the purple handprint representative of a historical queer protest in San Francisco in October 1969, Friday of the Purple Hand, where queer protesters hit back against defamatory articles published by the San Francisco Examiner, an extract from the iconic protest song Glad to Be Gay by the Tom Robinson Band, and finally, the pattern work lifted from the vintage Wild Woodbines cigarette packet and Gordon's gin bottle I have, because it was my great-grandmother's favourite brand of smokes, and it was my mother's brand of gin, and has always reminded me of the traditional pattern works we use as decoration. I also keep thinking about if something like this existed when I was a kid, and I get a little emotional. The idea that people like those of us involved in this residency truly existed was a pipe dream to young me. I am beyond proud to be able to show the next generation that they are not alone.
I applied to the Queer Britain residency on like a whim. I always struggle thinking, am I queer enough? Am I traveller enough? I've always struggled with the different sides of my identity. I've always very much hid the traveller side of me, even more than my queer side, just because it's something that people are a lot more openly not very nice about. The first piece of artwork we did, which was the collage work, I was telling my friends that it was so therapeutic in a way, just to like do something with your hands and talk about these real lived experiences, both with being part of the GRT community and being queer, and having that connection for probably the first time in my life. Having those two things come together really felt quite revolutionary in my life. I think I am okay now, but all my people, and especially the younger people, they are able to be so much more open than I ever was as a kid, and I love seeing that. But what's really great is hearing everyone's stories about how their queerness is in their community. People quite often put the GRT community as like one thing. Oh, you're a gypsy, that means you must be like this. Oh, you're from the showman community, you must be like this. And it's really great to be in a room where everyone shows all the different intricacies, all the differences within the community. That existing can be radical. Being exactly who you want to be in a world that doesn't want you to be can be the most basic and radical form of rebellion. A lot of people don't think that travellers can be gay. So just having that one thing is going to make people go, oh, well maybe that community is slightly different to how we thought. Let's listen to them now.
I live on a boat. I'm nomadic. I don't really have like a set home in that sense. And it was really beautiful being able to write poetry that could combine the experience of being non-binary as well, and maybe on the outer skirts of society, and combining those two together and looking into the fluidity of gender and sexuality, as well as water and elements, and being on a boat and combining all those things together. So I found that part really touching. It's been really amazing as well hearing other people's experiences and speaking to other people in travelling communities. So what I've decided to put up for display is a combination of the poem that I just mentioned, which centres around non-binary fluidity and being a boat person, and I've put it around one of the portfolios, one of the portraits that was taken on one of the days, which I stumbled on at the beginning of thinking, what is it I want to say and what is it I want to be doing in this residency? And the photographer just kind of said to me, like, that you being here is enough, and like how you are is enough. And that's a really beautiful way of looking at it and being able to feel more accepted and just like embraced and celebrated. So someone said at one point about not having anything permanently in the archives because of it being more of a traveller way of kind of going somewhere, building up and then leaving no trace. And I find that really beautiful and poetic. But I do also like the idea that it can be in the archives and people can feel more represented and feel like there's different intersections of different communities where they can be celebrated as well.
I have selected 2 pieces of digital art, the sum of my parties and a poem, Gay War Stuff. Some of My Parties is an overlaid collage based on the theme of the many layers of identity we all have, our true selves, our individual family cultures, mainstream culture, and wider queer and traveller culture, and how we must fight through all these layers to authentically be ourselves, and how to create the jigsaw that makes our authentic self. Many of us struggle with these layers and fall into maladaptive coping mechanisms, such as partying too hard. But the party scene is a refuge from the challenges the layers present for many young travellers. We're all more than the sum of our parties. Gay War Stuff was developed with Gemma Lees and is a very personal piece to me. For the past 6 months, I've been part of a queer collective supporting Gazawi people. Many of us are from diverse backgrounds, and I feel that the fire in our bellies is most certainly connected to our various heritages, as well as our queer struggles. I've also contributed to the Tarot project, choosing justice as a theme. The figure in the centre of the card is a still from a video document of a protest piece that I performed outside of an embassy. The country had violently oppressed a friend of mine, and I dressed as a modern-day Lady Justice is a very literal interpretation of the card. Land justice, queer justice, justice for all travellers, and I hope that it'll encourage more investment in marginalised communities, and in particular younger people from within those communities. Heritage is more important to me than tradition. While I'm proud of some traditions, others make me ashamed.
Taking part in the Traveller Plus Community Residency at Queer Britain has been such a meaningful and reinvigorating experience for me. As diverse individuals, we had the opportunity to simply exist together as a group. No questions, no needing to seek validation, no pressure. Just us as our authentic selves. I have selected my zine to be put on display. It's a simple scene of someone on horseback towing a wagon through the countryside, wondering out loud if they will ever find love again. I believe it is important to talk about queer love, especially queer love within marginalized communities. When people see my zine, I want them to think about who the main character is. The line, "It's been a long time," said in reference to being in love and having a romantic mutual, means that this person, whoever they are, have a history. Are they a widow? Maybe they recently transitioned, perhaps they divorced. Love is something that most queer people experience, and sometimes it's complicated and messy, and that's okay. There's always midnight to look forward to. This residency and the work made isn't just for us or the people visiting, but for all people who are like us. We are travellers and Romanis, gypsies, showmen, boaters, New Age travellers, Nakan, Minkeri, and sometimes we're queer. We're here, we always have been, and we always will be.
It did force me to do some sober reflecting in the cold light of day on, I guess, how my practice is really informed and grounded within my identity as a Romani gypsy, as a person of Romani gypsy heritage. Because my practice has always been one of DIY, scavenging, sort of hot gluing materials and disparate ideas and thoughts together without any formal training, which is an experience that a lot of other people of Romani gypsy heritage have experienced, or just this need or desire to work things out as they go along and do and make with sort of an intuition in mind, or like a trust of oneself, which I think is part of our shared cultural heritage. It's not that deep on the surface, but if you've never sat in a room with people of your shared cultural heritage, it becomes quite profound, I think. My identity as a GRT individual is inherently tied to my practice as a DIY performer, DIY drag performer. I think the spirit of drag is very tied to the spirit of being GIT.